And I know we have some 2021, 2022 PepsiCo Foundation Smile Scholars on the call, some Uplift Scholars. So thank you guys for joining. And I know we're joined by our 2023 Kickstart Leadership participants as well as Campus to Corporate. So really excited that you guys can make it today and just get ready for an exciting conversation. But before I introduce our speakers, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Dora Mimura, and I lead our diversity programs here at PepsiCo on the early talent team. My pronouns are she and hers, and I currently work out of the Plano, Texas location in the Dallas area. Been with PepsiCo for exactly 7 months now. Tomorrow makes 7 months. And then my favorite PepsiCo product, sadly enough, is Hot Cheetos. I love Hot Cheetos. Loved Hot Cheetos since middle school. So yep, definitely a flaming Hot Cheetos girl. But before I introduce our speakers, feel free to write your favorite products in the chat. And then I want you guys to know the call is being recorded. So if you want to go back and kind of get some notes or insights, you will have that available to you. And we want you guys to be engaged. So make sure you're interacting in the chat, ask any questions you have, or save them until the end. When we do get some time, we'll make sure to take some questions. So we'll get started with our panelists. I'll start with Francisco, and then whoever feels comfortable, you can make sure to introduce yourself next.
All right, Dora, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dora mentioned, I'm Francisco Navarro. Most that work with me call me Cisco. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm actually the director of the digital transformation group. And basically what that is, if you see our folks or some Frito-Lay salesmen in the stores ordering, delivering, or merchandising product, the technology that they use, a lot of that technology comes from my group. So I really get to impact their day-to-day with the technology that they leverage. I'm based here in the headquarters out of Plano, Texas, and been with the organization 19 years. Started the first 8 years, we're up in Chicago with the beverage business. So think of your Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Aquafina. And then the last 11 been down here in Texas on the Frito-Lay side, the snacks division. So think your Frito, Doritos, your Lays, and those type of products. And Dora, I gotta admit, Flamin' Hot Cheetos are my favorite as well, but those Flamin' Hot Doritos are a hit as well.
Ah, that's a good one. Thanks, Francisco. Guess we'll go with Anthony next. I'll go across my screen.
Sounds good. Anthony Booker, pronouns are he, him, his. I've been with Pepsi now 16 and a half years. I'm in the accounting function, so essentially PepsiCo control. Spend about 12 years of my time in the control function, really working on external financial reporting for that period of time, and then moved over to the beverage division about 5 years ago, and have been primarily focused on a number of different areas within control. For PB&A financial control, also operational control. So I work with all of our plants and warehouses, at least my team does, supporting them on everything from inventory management to gate management, you name it. From an operational perspective, my team is out there trying to support the plants and warehouses and the people in the front line as much as possible. And my favorite product is Pearl Milling, formerly for a lot of you known as Aunt Jemima. My household is a big pancake and syrup household, so that's our favorite product.
Nice.
That's a good one. Dave, thanks. All right, we'll go with Rabia.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Rabia Salim. I am the chief of staff for our chief marketing officer. So at Frito-Lay. So I also, like Cisco, work in the Frito-Lay division with all of our snack portfolio within marketing. I've been with PepsiCo about 8.5 years now, and all within Frito-Lay. So I've worked across Doritos, Lay's, Cheetos, Sun Chips, lots of different salty snack brands. In my current role, what I do is I support our chief marketing officer. So leading a lot of our long-term strategy, where we want to go from a marketing perspective across all of our awesome iconic brands. So that is me, and my favorite PepsiCo product is Doritos Nacho Cheese. It's a classic, so you gotta stick to those.
Yeah, also good one. Okay, we have some great ones here. And last but certainly not least, Doris.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. My name is Doris Harrington. I am the Director of Government Affairs and Corporate Citizenship for PepsiCo. I'm part of the corporate function. For the state and local side, I mainly work in the Mid-Atlantic. areas. So I cover about 5 states plus Pennsylvania in the Mid-Atlantic. And then on the corporate citizenship side, I get to work with our national partners on stakeholder engagement and community engagement as well. I've been with the company for, it'll be 6 years this summer. So my entire career at this company has been in the public policy and government affairs space. And I am based in the DC office. My favorite PepsiCo products right now, I would have to say, is Starry and the Popcorners Cinnamon Crunch. Like those are like my faves right now.
Nice.
I didn't even know we had cinnamon crunch. I like the kettle popcorners. I'm gonna have to try it. Thank you.
They're the best. So good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it seems like we have a lot of different backgrounds and experiences amongst our panelists. So I know you guys touched on your background at PepsiCo, but can you tell us a bit more about how you started your career after graduating? So when did you realize you wanted to work in your respective fields, and what drew you to the work that you're currently doing now? And whoever wants to go.
Yeah. So I will say that after I graduated, I just knew that I wanted to be in the government space. I didn't know what that looked like exactly. I thought I wanted to do some policy work behind the scenes. So I started out after I graduated. Actually, my career started with an internship my senior year with the Maryland General Assembly. And then that summer, that same senator gave me a summer job. Upon graduation, I did a short stint in HR. So yeah, I was a contractor, knew that contracting wasn't for me, but I learned a lot of like little HR tools that I will put to work later in my career. And then I finally got a job with the same senator when she became the chair of the Black Caucus in Maryland. And so I was their youngest executive director at the time. And that was, through my work, through my internship and my summer job, that senator took a chance on me for that, to lead up their Black Caucus. After the caucus, I went on to be a lobbyist at the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, where I did employment law, which some of the HR stuff picked up on, as well as transportation issues and environmental issues. From there, I was there for about 6 years, and then I kind of spun that over I did a short stint at the National Black Caucus as a favor to one of my senators, and then the PepsiCo job came about. And I was drawn to this particular position because it got to mirror like two of my favorite things. Like, I am a policy wonk. I listen to MSNBC all the time. I'm always listening to the various podcasts, as well as some stories in between. And so I got to do the local politics work. Maryland was my base where I started my career, and to bridge out in the Mid-Atlantic was kind of like a natural feel for me. But I also got to do a lot of the community work. And so in my role, I get to do both community outreach and give back and put together all types of volunteer opportunities and drop off, little mini checks, or, help build out the foundation partner programs like the Uplift Scholarship. So that's what brought me to PepsiCo. It was a both, like I can get to do both and serve the community at home.
Pretty cool. Thank you for sharing, Doris.
Awesome. I can go next. I started in marketing. So I was a marketing intern at PepsiCo between my junior and senior year of college. And then, as a marketing intern, you get a project for the summer, you present it out to the leadership, and, if they like your work and kind of the way that you've performed all summer, they're able to give you a full-time offer at PepsiCo. So that's how I came in, and I've been here ever since for almost 8 years now, and have bounced around across different within marketing, doing different roles. I found my love for marketing. Like I took an advertising and marketing class in high school, and then I was like, this sounds great. Let me go, learn more about this in college. And and kind of went on from there. And it was really exciting. I loved my real interest when I started working in marketing was around consumer and understanding the psychology behind consumers and what they do and how they act and being able to do research with consumers. And that's where my first role in marketing was really anchored around going and doing research with consumers on, you know, building innovation for consumers and things like that. And it just kind of broadened my understanding of humans and the world, and then also just how to market to them better. So, and build really exciting brands and products. So been lucky enough to kind of continue that path through over the 8 years. And I think it always goes back to like finding out what you're passionate about and what you find interesting, and one thing always leads to another. So that's kind of been my path within marketing, being able to work on really exciting brands that people love, but also bring joy with some salty snacks to consumers. So
Nice.
it's been my
And it's
path.
good that your internship was able to just reinforce your passion for marketing and also introduce you to consumer marketing. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go
Fantastic.
next. Yeah, so luckily, you know, I found my path, if you will, in college, right? When I entered college, I started in aviation maintenance, so basically mechanic for planes, right? I thought I loved planes, thought I wanted to work on planes. Go into a couple classes and quickly realized, yeah, it's probably not the path, or not what I expected, and not something I think I can see myself doing long term. So through that period, I found information systems, right? Technology. I feel there's so many different paths that you can go within that space. So I decided to change my major and go down that path. And through some internships I had here locally on campus, I went through a networking path where I was a network guy for the student rec center, making sure all the computers were up and talking to one another. So got some experience there. Went down the troubleshooting and support path of folks calling in with issues and me supporting them. So I knew there was different avenues I can go to in technology. So I definitely knew I found the right space in the information systems, space, if you will. So as I got out of college, it wasn't as smooth to get into PepsiCo. So there was a couple jobs I had prior to this, and I did different things. Again, it was at the time where we had to upgrade all company systems and things like that. So another avenue, another area of exposure I got within the technology space. Then I got to Pepsi and started doing project work and supporting our frontline teams with technology, understanding what their business opportunities are and trying to figure out where technology can solve those opportunities. So once I got that exposure, that's when I knew I was like, this is the space I wanted to be in from a technology standpoint, because I enjoy helping others, but I also enjoy the challenge of leveraging technology to drive business results. So I started in that space, did different roles in that space, and here I am 19 years later, still relatively in that space, supporting our front line. So I'm lucky I was able to identify my path early on, but then pursue it through different experiences and find my space within that path, if you will. So I'm definitely happy with supporting the front line with technology.
Yeah, and that's definitely a trend I've been hearing so far from all of you, just knowing your passion early on and doing different experiences and projects to help you understand what you really want to do. So that's great. So Anthony, what about you?
Yeah, so I also made my decision early. It was not based on my passion, more so it was based on employment opportunity. So I went to Fordham University, which is in the Bronx, New York. And when I went on the visit at the school, I also played sports there. They talked about the fact that the CPA program, public accounting program at Fordham had 100% employment rate. At the end of the day, I knew I needed a job when I graduated from college, and 100% employment rate sounded very good to me. So that's ultimately how I chose the public accounting field. It was essentially sight unseen. I really knew nothing about the major except for the fact that it dealt with finance, and I knew I wanted to be in the finance space. Interned my senior year at a small public accounting firm in Midtown, and did that for about a year and a half and realized I actually didn't enjoy the public accounting aspect of accounting. So left there, went to Morgan Stanley for about 5 years, and then found my way to Pepsi, really from a work-life balance perspective. I was starting a family and I was ready to get closer to the location that I live in. So Pepsi in Purchase is closer to my home. So wanted to get closer to home from a work-life balance perspective. And that flexibility and opportunity to move around is ultimately what's kept me here at Pepsi that long.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the diversity of your experiences. So none of your experiences were the same. And I think that's very interesting. So just getting into more about transitioning from college, so not knowing what comes after graduation can feel nerve-wracking for some college students. And the final year, post-graduation day can be hectic, it can be mixed with joy, anticipation, excitement, and anxiety. But some recent graduates can have high expectations and may think along the lines of, my adult life is about to begin once I earn this degree. So they may be a little panicked. And after they graduate, some of them, may have their initial expectations fall short of what they first envisioned. So can you guys tell us what surprised you the most after you graduated from college? And what did you learn from this experience?
I'll go. I think probably the biggest surprise for me was, I don't want to put the wrong way, but I just think it was very clear that what I did in college wasn't necessarily going to matter as much as what I was able to do professionally once I got there. Like everything that had happened in college was essentially gone. It didn't matter. It was not important. I had a clean slate once I started at that organization, and it really is about you building your career at that point in time and really focusing on then finding your passion and figuring out how you're going to learn and continue to grow in your career. And that it's just really important to continue to challenge yourself. Like, you can stick with just doing your job, but it's really important to figure out how you challenge yourself and how you continue to create stretch opportunities for yourself. So I think that's something that I realized early on was going to be very, very important if I wanted to continue to move up in the organizations.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah, kind of building on that a little bit. For me, the biggest thing was like your what you think a role is going to be or what a job is going to be doesn't always net out to be like what you thought it would be or like how it comes to life. And being flexible and open to new opportunities to learn, to Anthony's point, and stretch yourself and grow. So just having like, yes, I want to do marketing and I want to do this, and like really going too small with your ambition or like too niche is actually going to hurt you in the long term. So being open to like different experiences and kind of learning to broaden your skill set is actually what's going to help drive like a longer career path for you in that way. So I think that was like, sometimes it's easy to get like, when you're coming out of college, be like, this is the exact thing I want to go work on. Well, there's so many bigger opportunities out there that like, if you narrow in too much, it's actually to your own detriment.
Yeah, that's a great point. And even to this day, I feel like I'm still learning about new opportunities that I can take advantage of in my career path.
Yeah, and the world's changing, right? Like a role that didn't exist 2 years ago exists now. So like things you don't even know are going to come up. So like by being open and true to yourself, you're able to kind of go get a lot of those opportunities.
So to build upon that point, I think a lesson that I learned was actually the importance of internships. Like I did have one my senior year, but I shouldn't have waited to my senior year, right? I feel like I was a little bit behind the 8 ball because I just knew when I was graduating, once I graduated, I was going to get into my field. Again, it was a little bit too niche for me. Like I thought I was going to just go and write policy. It was like, oh no, you need this degree or you need this degree and you need to do this. But I feel like if I put myself out there more earlier in different internship roles, I could get a chance to see like, well, what in political science do I really want to do? All I really knew was about the state government space, but I didn't realize, oh, you can go to a firm and be an intern there or just a staff assistant there, and then you can become a lobbyist. And that's a whole nother path in government affairs, or work for an agency. That's another path. I went to college fairs, but I didn't really put that much effort to starting my internship process before my senior year.
Yeah, the reason I'd add on to that, I think I told you I had internship locally on campus, which was very helpful and gave me great experience. But yeah, I think I should have expanded my reach, if you will, from an internship perspective to these bigger companies. Because I think you mentioned it early on, Dora, expectation. I'm about to graduate in the technology space. It's I'm gonna go get with this big company, gonna grow. And, you know, coming out of college, it was hard. It took me a little while to get settled with a company that, you know, I could, you know, find myself in, Pepsi. So it took me 2 years from college, I graduated college, to get to Pepsi. And in the meantime, I was doing contract work with different companies, UPS and Conagra. So for me, it's surprising was how difficult it was to get into that role where I found myself where I needed to be and where I could grow, right? And then 2 years later, PepsiCo called. They said, hey, we have something here on the help desk. And we can get you in. I just knew, let me get in, get my foot in the door, and work my way up. And here I am 19 years later, you know, doing something I have passion for, starting at the help desk, right? So I think for me, the big surprise is the difficulty of getting established and getting into the company you want to be in, but then also finding that company that you can grow and develop in, and that can help, you know, support you in that growth. So that was a big surprise for me.
Absolutely, and I'm already seeing some reoccurring themes here. And some of you have mentioned you've taken on multiple roles. So as you think about your first job or role that you had post-graduation, what do you wish you would have known or prepared for prior to starting it?
One of the things I wish I would have known a little bit more was the difference between contracting and being an employee, right? So being fresh out of school and got offered a job, but it was a contracting job. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's a job, right? Oh, no, we only really have you for this particular contract for 6 months. And I was like, oh, yeah, this might not be for me. Like, I need long-term stability here. But yeah, that was one thing that I wish I would have really understood the difference between contracting and, you know, full-time employment. But also at the time I needed a job, right? And so just having that education would have been helpful in preparing myself in my budget that, you know, what a contracting job is and how it differs from an in-house position of sorts.
That's a good point.
You know, Doris, I had a lot of similar feelings there as well. As I mentioned, I did contracting work. So to me, I got this job, and then you realize but you're really just a contractor and they can let you go at any moment. Your time's up. Now I'm back at square one looking for the next contract, right? That's not what I envisioned my career to be out of college. I got this degree in this hot industry, and here I am jumping from contract to contract, you know what I mean? So it was a tough pill to swallow, or I really had to set the right expectations within myself. So understanding things don't always go as planned, I think sort of set me back a little bit, but then I was able to persevere and figure it out and land where I landed. But I think understanding that would have helped out a lot coming out of college.
That's a good point. Understanding that things don't always go as planned, because I think we have this perfect picture of what we think our career in life will be when we get out of college. But just like we said, the expectations and being honest with ourselves can get us far.
Yeah, I think the only thing, the only thing for me I would add is the importance, really quickly, I noticed around networking and really building up a really good network. You know, everybody's talking about, you know, realizing how different, you know, that first job or that first experience can be. And if it's not a positive one, right, building a really good network that allows you to tap into people and utilize those resources for new opportunities, a new job potentially, you know, it's really, really critical and really important. So to me, networking is something that I advise everyone to really focus on, even while you're in college. Just connect, whether it's reaching out to an old professor in college, whether it's building a network with other people that you know, went to school with, as they get positions and get roles. Networking is really critical because you're going to move around in your career. It's likely going to come a time when you need to move or rely on people for perspective. So to me, networking is one of the things I realized early on was important.
Good.
I think the only last thing I'd add is like so much like not being afraid to like ask questions and ask for help really early on. Like I think sometimes we like build it up in ourselves of like, oh, I need to know everything so quickly, or like I need to stand out and this and that, and it's like a lot of internal pressure that you put on yourself and anxiety. And it's really, you know, when, especially at PepsiCo, I had an incredible experience of people really, outpouring support from a networking perspective, from a resources perspective, from like a helping you get it onboarded perspective. So like people are willing to help, and asking questions actually sets you up better for success in an organization. And like ask any questions that or what you're pulling together is right or not, and get advice from people, because people are more than willing to help. I think the pressure that we put on ourselves is a lot of internal versus like how people foresee you. So that's my biggest.
Yeah. I think if I can add one thing, Anthony, you hit it spot on with the network. And I think in college, you can start that work, right? Getting involved with different organizations and being active on campus, because to that point, when you're going to look for these jobs and doing a career, you already have sort of a network that you can lean into that are probably in the same boat or a little advanced and may have opportunities for you. So definitely agree, network nation is important. And you can start doing that by getting involved on your local campus.
Yeah, and to Francisco's point, to those of you involved in organizations and fraternities, sororities, that can go beyond college, as he said, as
Sure.
some of them have already started their careers. So
Yeah.
that's a great point. This kind of gets me into the next question. So your life after graduation may look different from your friends due to the fact that you're more like, you moved to different states because of work or graduate school. And with this, you may find yourself comparing your career trajectory to friends and peers, or you can have moments where you feel behind from others. So how do you process these feelings, and what are some things you did to become more satisfied with your life?
I'll jump in. It may be a little bit controversial, but everybody's faking it. Like everybody is faking it till they make it, especially when you're getting right out of school. So don't compare yourself to someone else's journey. That's their journey and that's their path. Yours may be similar or it may be different, but everyone's circumstances are a little bit different. But at the same time, they're most likely struggling just like you, but everybody's just putting on a front. So that's why I recommend not to judge yourself against, your friend's path, because you don't know what their story is, and it may not be your path either. So.
And I agree to that. I would say with things like Instagram, it's so hard to, compare sometimes. But like you said, you have to remember what path is yours.
Yeah. That's also,
Jen,
I think also, I told you about the contracting work. And I did have a couple close friends, right out of college, started with Boeing, being a teacher. I did see right out of college, they were established. And here I was trying to get established, right? Trying to find a career path. So there was times where you compare, like, man, they're going on these trips, just couldn't do it, didn't have vacation time, couldn't afford it, whatever the case may be. So you do find yourself like, man, that's where I need to be, or that's where I should be. But you're right. I mean, you really have to stay true to yourself and follow your path. At the end of the day, if you stay focused, persevere, you will get there. But it was tough in the beginning, seeing those things around me and not comparing. But I always had to check myself to say, hey, I'm on my path and I'll figure out my way. It all worked out, but it was difficult those first few years out of college and trying to establish myself.
Yeah. Keeping it honest. Well,
Yeah.
from another,
No,
go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So from another perspective of friendships, so keeping in mind that after college, some of your friendships may dwindle down again because of the distance, space. How did you guys maintain your friendships, and how did you create new ones?
For me, it was always my group of friends. None of us were central to the area that we went to school at. So all of us, went back home essentially post college. So for us, it was scheduling annual trips to get together, making it close, driving distance for some. If others could fly, they would fly, but trying to figure out a time when really we could get everyone engaged in it. And we always tried to make it low key so that, we did have people, to Francisco's point, at different career points in terms of being financially stable. So we always made it so that everyone could make it, and it wasn't something that was going to be financially restrictive if someone didn't have as much money. We always tried to keep it as low key as possible. So that's an idea that, that I think is, obviously possible. I think in today's day and age, it's obviously a lot easier with technology to jump on Zooms with people, to connect via social media in so many different ways. So I obviously encourage people to utilize that. But I also, I do think it's important to get together in person whenever you can and sort of make it, non-negotiable. We're going to figure out a date that we can get 90% attendance to it, 100% if possible. And that's what we're doing. And we're going to make it so that it is purposeful that everybody can attend, so that it's not something that prices anybody out. I think to me that piece of it was huge, and it's 20 plus years later and we're still doing it. So
yeah, to build on that I agree, having those touch points. I was the reverse. I didn't go back. I'm originally from New York, and I came to Baltimore, Maryland for school, and I never left there. I haven't left Maryland, right? I'm still surprised that it's like 21 years later, and I'm still here. But that was my path. And so I am still pretty close with a group of my friends that I started in college. Everyone also want to put out that folks have their season, right? So your early 20s friends may not necessarily make it to your 40 friends, right? Or the whole entire subgroup. So be conscious of that, or be aware of that. Sometimes folks have their seasons. But to Anthony's point, like, of being intentional and having in-person time, that's how I've maintained my friendships. We always try to get together in person once a year, or even quick touch points. You don't have to talk to someone every single day, but like an Instagram message or a Facebook message or a text every quarter is like, hey, thinking of you, hope all is well, goes a long way. And that's how I've been able to maintain some of my high school relationships as well as my college relationships as well.
Yeah. Jumping in, kind of the other question that you asked, Dora, was around like making new friends. And when I moved, got my first role, I moved from outside of Chicago to Texas, in Dallas, and it's really hard to make friends in your 20s, and like right after college, and I didn't know anyone outside of my coworkers, and for me it was really like how to kind of the outreach part was harder, right? Like I made some great friends at work, but like you want friends who are not just work friends. So finding going to, whether that's through sports or like building a community through religion or other activities, it's so important. So like I really encourage that for sure, of like, whatever your interests are. If you like pottery, if you like to play pickleball or whatever else, like there are people who are doing that in your new city, and go seek it out. And people who have similar interests, you're likely going to get along and be able to like build lasting friendships. And that's what I ended up doing, is like meeting people through building a community on mutual interest, and then they introduced me to more people, and then you just kind of build friendships from there. And that's kind of was the key to finding friends in my 20s, is just putting myself out there with like things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add is I think, to Ed's point, and that's how we stay close. Our core group from college, we're still close. We do yearly trips, we do that. But I think what I found as I progressed in career and got out of college is I lost more of my high school friends. I think that group sort of dwindled more than my college friends. I think the college friends, we stayed very close. We're all like-minded, ambitious and trying to succeed and things like that. I think I found my high school friend group dwindle a little bit more than I did college, because, we definitely stayed close.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to Teresa's point, you have some friends for a season sometimes. You're 20 friends, 30 friends, but like to all of you said, it's important to be intentional with your core group. So let's go on to the topic of learning. So it's important for everyone to know that learning never ends. And this is always something new. There's always something new to learn and do better each day. And this can happen outside of the classroom setting, which people have been accustomed to while in school. So what skills did you develop after you graduate, and what are you currently learning at this point in your career?
I'd say for me, I don't I don't think the learning, when it comes to learning new skills, I think for me, the most important thing was realizing that it just never ends, that it's essentially ongoing, and you should constantly be either learning something new in your current role or taking on a role that provides that opportunity for you to really stretch what you've learned and what you've already built on. You have to constantly challenge yourself. And for me, it's always been a focus on taking roles that I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be successful in, right? It's always, I'm not sure about this next role. I don't know how well this one is going to go. And there are, whether or not you succeed or you fail, you're still learning. You're learning what you might do well, and B, you could be also learning what you don't do that well either. And that's also really, really beneficial, especially if you learn that earlier on in your career than later on in your career, right? So the earlier you can figure out where your gaps are and where your strengths are, and what you can do to build on those gaps and really improve on those weaknesses that you may have, is extremely important in setting the right kind of foundation as you continue to move up within your career. You want to make sure that when you move up, you stay there. And if you build up that house on one side, it's gonna tumble. You want to make sure you're building it, at the ground level and continuing to work your way up so that it's stable when you get to the, to the top of that. So that to me has been the biggest focus, is to continue to learn, continue to push myself to grow on a consistent basis.
To build upon what Anthony was saying, and also to tie back to the previous questions about like making new friends, I think a lot of growing and learning is to make sure that your circle or one of your circles is always challenging you, right? Or challenging you to learn. It's a different setting, so you might not really notice that you're learning, but make sure that those around you are also, whether it's ambitious or curious to learn, that you can both like rise together, because that will also stretch you a little bit of thinking differently or learning new tools. Also, identifying early a mentor and knowing the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. I think that was one of the things that I didn't really learn till later in my career, and the importance of maintaining those relationships, because that also brings opportunities for learning that is not directly within, it could be directly within your company that you're working for, but it could also be externally to build out your knowledge base. So, whether it's building that particular network or building a network of your friends that are all at different places and learning together, or very much like just going back to school or taking an online course or a LinkedIn course, or picking up a book just to learn new things. I think you always need to be in a constant state of learning, as well as in a constant state of receiving feedback and information and tools. So that's how I've been trying to operate my life in that space.
That's good. And to your point of continuing learning, like you said, getting certifications and going back to school. I know a lot of people go back to school just to continue their education. So that's also available.
And I think as you navigate your career, those different roles will dictate your learning, right? What you have to go learn, how you can be successful. I think Anthony, you touched on it, is you got to find spots to be uncomfortable, right? It's not a good feeling, right? We all don't like being uncomfortable, but when you're uncomfortable, you learn the most, right? So if you're not uncomfortable, you may need to rethink, your position you're in and go find something that you can learn from. But yeah, as you navigate, you'll quickly learn and understand where I need to go learn more, where I need to go put focus on to allow you to get where you want to be and to be successful in your career.
And it's something I heard early in my career is that you should be doing your next job in your current job. So it just made me think of what you touched on, Anthony. So as we talk about learning, I know for me, when I first got out of college, it was hard for me to just stay organized and keep up with time management. So what routines did you put in place for yourself, both professionally and personally, to keep your life more organized, productive, and manageable?
I think having a routine in general is super important. Like a lot of the times in college, you're kind of going with the flow, or like, your commitments are very vast and different. And here, like coming to a 9 to 5, having structure for so much of my day, like prioritizing my health and fitness and social life and all of those things, like it can be very overwhelming coming out of college. So it was just like really helpful to get into a routine of like, when should I go grocery shopping? When should I, like, um, and how do you just not like forego your social life because you're so exhausted from your 9 to 5, or there's so much other stuff going on, and you keep like pushing back your friend meetups and all of that. So I think getting into a routine and a cadence around like, okay, this is the day I'll do shopping and I'll do some meal prep and this and that, like having some of that structure really helped me coming out of school. But also like it was my first time living alone after college, so it was definitely a big step change of like, okay, I am accountable for all the things that happen in this household. So managing that and like creating a schedule for myself, or even if it's not like a very regimented schedule of like, hey, these are the 3 things I want to accomplish this week, and make it very manageable, really helps. And that's what definitely helped me make that transition.
I think for me, you have to do a couple of things that I think are, to me, really important. One, you have to figure out what it is you want in life, both professionally and personally, right? Your career can go in any direction you choose, but you got to figure out the right balance around how much that work matters compared to your personal life, right? So if going to the gym is really important, you've got to prioritize, and you've got to figure out where on that list it resides. And if family's important, you've got to prioritize. And as things start to creep into those things that you prioritize, then you've got to reset and figure out, am I okay with where I'm going? Am I okay if my job or my career is taking me further away from my family? If not, it's okay to reset and say, you know what, maybe this role, this job isn't the right answer for me because it's taking me further away from what really matters to me, right? So to me, you got to figure out that first. And then I think the second thing to Rabia's point is you have to set a to-do list. There has to be on a daily basis a list of what is most important, whether it be professional or personal, that you are getting accomplished. Am I doing this? Have I checked this off, and checked this off? Because if you don't do that, there are going to be things that you forget to do that you need to get done, whether it's for your boss or for yourself personally. And I think the third thing to living on your own that's really important is you better have a budget, and you better know exactly what's coming in and coming out of that budget. Because if you don't, you're going to wind up in credit card debt. You're going to wind up in all kinds of other situations, not being able to pay rent, those kinds of things. You have to personally figure out a budget, put money away. That has to come from day one so that you are taking care of, your finances immediately. And you're getting used to living on whatever that number that you're supposed to and can live on is possible. So to me, those are the things that you absolutely have to do as soon as you graduate college.
Well, we're great. Lots of tidbits there. The budget is very important. And actually goes into my next question, because we've even touched on it earlier about making sure that your group trips are cost friendly. So what are your favorite or best finance tips that college students should keep in mind as they plan their life after college?
I think one that has been told to me during college, I just didn't really pay attention, as well as at high school, is to start saving first, right? And so when you just get out of school, you may not have the ideal job or the salary that you think you will have. And so you really are just living, not even paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have a budget. I was just making it work, right? So to Anthony's point of have a budget first, pay yourself first. And that will go a long way 10, 15 years from now. Because I was that student, well, not student, but that young professional. I was living off of credit cards. just to live, right? And so I didn't realign myself or my career path to adjust with my current living situation. So I will say save first. What they say is true. Put some money away as soon as you get your first check and get it out there, like before you even see your check. Like you won't even miss it. So just automatically start putting it away.
Yeah. Similarly, like I think there's like resources that colleges offer around like financial literacy and like things like that, like that you have access to, and I never tapped into when I was in college, and I'm like, oh, I should have done that. Like that would have been great to know. And when you're in the middle of it, you're not really thinking about like, okay, how am I setting myself up for the future in the right way? You know, if I have a summer job, am I saving the money and all of those things? So like I do wish that in college I like had tapped into some of those resources, whether that's like, you know, that were free to me at the time. And, you know, they have like personal finance 101 and like come to our little seminar or whatever. And it seems silly when you're in college, but like I like looking back, I'm like, wow, I would have loved to know that when I was 21 years old, and like would have been way better. And like even just educating myself like outside of like my first day on the job of what a 401k is and how does that work and like things like that, like it would, I feel like it would just set me up like for better success in the future. So if your college or school has resources, your like community colleges even have those kinds of resources, I think I always recommend young professionals to go just like sit for an hour, learn about it, kind of take in some of that information, and you're better set up for success that way.
Yeah, that's good. And to your point, a lot of that stuff is free to college students, those resources. And I also did not take advantage of it. And I waited until I graduated. So to Via's point, definitely take advantage of that. Francisco, were you going to say something?
No. I mean, you guys said it. The only thing I'd add is understand your credit score, stay close to your credit score, and understand how to manage your credit score. Because that's going to be key as you grow and as you move forward in life. That's a very important thing that I think is not enforced as much when you're younger or through college, but definitely understand what that is and how you can manage it to your benefit.
Yeah, agreed. These were great insights, and all things that I feel like I didn't get to tap into when I was in college. So it's really nice to hear that you guys are providing everyone with this information and insights. But I know we touched on organizations and group and, you know, just staying connected. So you're all members of at least one of PepsiCo's employee resource groups. So we call those ERGs here. So Adelante, Mosaic, for example. And for everyone in the audience, an ERG at PepsiCo, they're just designed to help our associates find community and acceptance outside of their immediate teams. So while also helping our associates to learn how to be allies with marginalized communities. So for example, Mosaic supports our Black associates and Adelante supports our multicultural, Hispanic, and Latinx associates. So can you guys share a bit of your experience getting involved and attending their events and initiatives, and how has that helped you while you were at PepsiCo?
Yeah, I'll say for me, you know, for me, it started even in college, right? I was part of, you know, at Fordham, the Black Student Union. So, you know, always finding that community, you know, to your point, Dora, as you get into these new paths. And, you know, Rabia talked about that network that, you know, if you're in a new job, that's a great opportunity to establish a network, meet some people that aren't necessarily in your field, but work in the organization. So while they may be technically work friends to an extent, they're outside of your, you know, your role. So it's a great opportunity for that. I found it really, when I got to Pepsi, it was critical from a mentoring perspective. So not sponsorship, but definitely mentoring, how Pepsi works, you know, the political aspect of Pepsi, you know, all of those different aspects you learn from people that have already been in that organization from a certain period of time. And that was a great opportunity for me to, you know, one, build my network, and two, get some really good mentoring from some people that had already been in the organization for a while. So I really do think it's a great way to learn about an organization when you first get there.
Yeah, for me, it helped from a growth and development perspective, right? As you work with your managers, every year you talk to a development plan. Okay, this year, what are we going to focus on, or what are your opportunities? In the past experience, one of it was, hey, we needed more strategic thinking, right? So I went over to Adelante, was fortunate to be president and able to put together AOP, think more strategic, more execution of that AOP. So right, it allowed me to grow in a space that I felt comfortable in, but then also leverage those skills back in my day-to-day job to show my development. So that's where I leverage it. And the biggest thing, yes, is the networking and the doors it can open up just through those relationships.
Nice. So I've heard networking, gaining mentors, career development. Anything to add, Rabia or Dries?
Yeah, I'll just add, for me, like right now in my organization, I am the only Black person, as well as like Black woman. And so it was very helpful. The ERGs was very helpful in making sure that I didn't feel alone, right, in my office or in my role. And so that has been like the main reason why I participate in the ERGs. We have several, and I'm a part of 3, but it was mainly that, to be in a male-dominated field on top of that, and then being the only person of color. Well, not the only, we do have some other persons of color, but I was the only Black person. I'll say that. It does give me a sense of community, to understand the culture at PepsiCo and to move forward and gain new skills.
That's good. And to that point, I'm from Florida originally, but I'm out of the Plano office. And I remember when I first joined PepsiCo, I didn't really know anyone because my team, we sit across like the states, and I went to a Mosaic event and I actually ended up meeting a few people, and now I feel really close to them. We actually hang out. So to your point, it does help with feeling a little bit lonely, when you're moving to a new state and just getting that community.